Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Chaotic Tavern. I'm your bartender, Dan, and I have a story to share with you. Sorry about the very deep voice, I just rolled out of bed. My schedule is so insanely busy these days, I have to record these things before I go to work sometimes now. But you're not here to listen to me whine, you're here to listen to me read stories. But before we get into that, dear listener, I do have a question for you. Have you ever had a TTRPG group with that one member who seems to go out of their way to not be a part of the game? I know I have. I don't just mean they misbehave until they eventually get booted. I mean they make a concerted effort to not participate in the party's activities. Or the party itself for that matter. One of my favorite examples of this sort of thing is when a new player will join a campaign and then have their character just refuse any and all invitations to join the quest. It's like that person is saying, it's not enough that you included me, I need you to beg me to stick around, or I'm going to deny you the blessing of my presence, you peasant. Or there's the other type of guy who constantly sneaks away from the party and does everything in his power to not be associated with them. And it's not always obvious that a player is going to be like this. Sure, you have your edgelords and your murder hobos that often carry that stink of "avoid me at all costs" on them. But every so often, one of these players manages to hide their power level until they've successfully wormed their way into the midst of a campaign. And once they're there, it's only a matter of time before the game is slammed to a halt when they do something so obnoxious that you can't just move on from it. Time has to be taken out of the session just to address and deal with whatever self-serving main character energy bullshit they've just thrown up onto the table. Today's story revolves around a player who takes the idea of party dynamics and cooperation and throws them right out the window. And after a falling out with the party, is given another chance to try and be a functioning member of the group, only to immediately piss all over that extended invitation and scurry away into some long-forgotten corner of the world. Today's story is titled, Why Can't I Play a Psychopath? By Unpriced Toaster. Game: Cyberpunk Red. We'd played maybe 4 sessions of this tense, atmospheric thriller game. In Cyberpunk, all the players are basically lowlifes working to make ends meet in a dark, dystopian corporate hell. This was an online table, 4 regular players, 2 GMs, myself included. I mention the game online and I get a message from someone asking about it. Hey, mind if I join your game? We'll call him Rick. And he seemed polite enough. Said he'd played the game for several years and was familiar with the system and setting and had been looking for a good TTRPG group for a while, and the time slot fit his schedule. We liked his enthusiasm and figured, why not? A new voice could add energy, maybe a new narrative element. We welcomed him in. Red flag number 1. Rick submitted a very specific and unusual character. Something like an online gamer girl who wore cat ears and a tail on her stream and her avatar, who had been used and abused by the megacorps for her image, and now that she was old news, they threw her to the curb. They'd even surgically grafted the ears and tail onto her. Unconventional, but dystopian. So sure, I approved the sheet and even started integrating his character concept into the world's larger narrative. This could get interesting if they meet a fan, or the corporation decides they want to use the branding again without her. But right before our first session, he messaged again. Hey, I made some changes. Some was an understatement. He'd completely overhauled the character. Different stats, new abilities, different gear, the works. The only thing that stayed the same was the ears, tail, and backstory. No time to review it. We rolled with it. To his credit, Session 1 went great. Rick's character, Vera, played a bit like a lone wolf at times, not really following the plan the group had all agreed on, but they still completed the mission thanks to Vera's skills in infiltration and her gadgets. My players are happy to let someone else have the spotlight, and they gave him space to shine. He helped solve the mystery, even dealt the killing blow to the big bad at the end of the mission. We wrapped, feeling good. Promising start. Red flag number 2. The party was tracking a rival group of edge runners into a shopping mall. They didn't know who to trust, and they were expecting some corp trouble. While they're surveilling together, Vera snuck off from the group. When she came back, the other players asked where she went. All she said was, "Don't worry about it." The other PC pressed. Vera. Nowhere. So she was hiding something. The PC is on edge now, but they get back to surveillance. Then, the twist. One of the rival group NPCs seemed to recognize his character. "Oh hey, I'm a huge fan. Are you Kitty Girl?" Her online personality with cat ears and tail. Yeah, I am." "Awesome, I'm so glad you're streaming again. Can I get an autograph?" Sure." Rival leaves, amazed they got to meet their favorite vlogger who hadn't uploaded in years and apparently started uploading again recently unbeknownst to Vera. A standoff erupted in character. The party, feeling blindsided, demanded answers. Vera didn't have any. They want to know if she's compromised the mission by streaming the mission online. They want to know who she really is. And who her online persona is. They say if she intends to stay in the shadows, she should burn her old identity and probably her new one if she's just been found out by this rival crew. The player got upset. "I paid a lot of money for this fake ID. I'm not just gonna get rid of it." Tension rising. One player is threatening violence if they don't get a straight answer. Another has their weapon ready if needed. But it was all in character, cinematic, intense, grounded in the fiction. Then Rick left the game. No warning, no message. Just quit mid-session and dropped from the Discord server. Later, he messaged me. "Everyone was being mean to me for no reason. They pulled guns on me and threatened to kill me and told me I had to burn my ID. You're all jackasses." The rest of the players were surprised, confused. They apologized even, worried they'd crossed a line. Eventually, Rick, my co-GM, and I had a chat, and he asked to come back. I left it to a party vote. Unanimous. Let's give him another shot. They agreed to make new characters that will get along better. You know, it's both heartwarming and depressing whenever I see this sort of thing happen. These moments where a problem player takes themselves out of the equation only to be dragged back in by the DM or the other players. It fills me with a little optimism because it's genuinely nice to see people trying to work through issues like this. I feel like in the modern era of the internet, people are just a little too quick to just throw others away over the smallest slight, and redemption is something rarely offered these days. But then I realized that OP and their GM just went out to the curb, grabbed the trash that was supposed to get taken by the city, and then threw it all over their living room. Rick was headed to the dump, and OP dragged him out of the garbage truck. I'd like to ask you folks watching if you could jot down in the comments when you think you should or should not try to redeem or bring back someone to the table. Or maybe even share some stories of it going well or, predictably, going terribly. In any case, I want to take these red flags and look at them one at a time. First, we have a player who is making drastic changes to their character sheet moments before their first session. That is not a red flag. That is a gigantic siren that screams problems are on the horizon. This is the sort of thing that, even with time being a factor, you can't just ignore and move on from. This needs to be addressed immediately because for all intents and purposes, Rick here is a ticking time bomb. You don't know if he's fudged things beyond the scope of the rules or if he's accidentally broken his character in some way that makes it unusable. And if you don't make time for that problem now, the problem will do it for you in the middle of your session. If the result of Rick's actions is that he has to miss out on the first session and join in during the next one, then that's what needs to happen. Or, maybe during a break in the session, have the GM take a minute to double check the sheet and make sure it's okay. But dropping that on people that you're supposed to be playing a game with mere moments before everything's supposed to start? That's inconsiderate at best and slimy at worst. Second, we have this standoff between Rick and the rest of the table. Now, this to me wasn't necessarily a big red flag at first. New players oftentimes don't really get how role-playing works, or the idea that the party is the main character, not the individual members of the party themselves. Conflict like this can be natural for people who don't know what they're doing and can actually lead to some great moments of character development if they're handled correctly. But then I remembered what OP said at the start of this. Rick's not a rookie. Rick's not a newbie. By his own admission, Rick has been playing this game for ages. He of all people should know that in a world like Cyberpunk, making your character act extremely suspicious and untrustworthy is probably not a good way to make friends with your fellow criminals. It's hard to trust somebody with your life and your freedom if they're going out of their way to act sketchy as all hell. This was a moment the GM should have paused everything and tried to resolve things out of character, but it can be hard to do that in the heat of the moment. So instead, we end up in a situation where a player who is suspicious gets upset that people find him suspicious. Then, Rick makes the worst choice you can make in a situation like that, which is to just refuse to explain himself. Rick, you're either backstabbing the party, pretending you're the main character, or you're showing that you're an unreliable player who can't be trusted with the party's safety. All three of these are grounds for the other players to act like you're an existential threat because, well, you are. And throwing a huff and storming off when people take issue with that tells me that they really should have just let you go without a fight. I'm not sure what's more confusing, the fact they asked you to come back or the fact you agreed. Then again, OP does say he asked to come back, so do with that what you will. Red flag number 3. Rick and I worked together on their new character. I suggest maybe reach out to another player and collaborate on character creation. Make someone a little more straightforward, and he pitched Antonia Drakov. And we built quite a bit of backstory. A former gang member who had it out for the corporations and the corrupt police. It was a compelling idea. I wove it into the world, prepped NPC connections, rewrote a few threads. It was already pretty late, so I went to bed and I let Rick build the character sheet for the concept we worked on together. But when Rick sent over the character sheet, it was, again, different. Instead of the poor gang member, he'd built a corporate assassin with no emotional capacity, specifically traits that made them a cold, unfeeling psychopath. No remorse. No limits, who felt nothing when they killed, in fact. They were like ants beneath his boot. Why should he care for ants? When I asked about the disconnect, he said, I like this character more. I suggested we tweak the backstory, given how his new character is completely different from the other one, and to better integrate with the other characters who might not want to rely on and trust a full-on psychopath once they show their true colors. Maybe we can give them a reason to struggle with that psychopathy. A redemptive thread, maybe ask the other PCs for help. Something to explore. Rick replied with, okay, but can that backstory qualify me for this one trait to get more cybernetics? I told him, maybe we just stick to what you have. The game was starting soon. Nope. Rick quit the game again, this time permanently. His final message, you're all mean and bullies. Reflecting back, the players were very generous. They gave him a spotlight. I rewrote parts of the world for him. They voted to give him another chance after a walkout and being insulted as players. The players were patient, empathetic, and open to role-playing through tension. But it became clear he didn't want to tell a story with us. He wanted to play by himself with the other players as NPCs. He'd never spoken to any of the other players, just me. He didn't speak to the other GM, just me. He didn't want to collaborate or compromise. Nobody is the villain in their own stories, but sometimes you meet someone who can't see the forest through the trees. And sometimes they burn the woods down before they're willing to share the path. You know, OP, I feel like maybe you're being a bit too harsh here. This man's been playing this game since he was a sperm cell. Or at least I assume that's the case since he's been playing this game for several years apparently, and yet he's also clearly a fucking child. You're a weirdo, Rick. I don't really know what else to say about you. You're weird. You're just weird. The fact you only talk to like 1 or 2 people, the way you avoid your party, it's all just really strange and I'm not fond of it. Reminds me of this guy who used to walk up to the gaming table my friends and I would meet at and ask if he could watch us. Then he'd stand over my shoulder close enough to give me a big ol' smooch if he wanted to, and stare silently at the only girl at the table. What I'm getting at, Rick, is why did you even bother joining in the first place if you're just gonna be an antisocial weirdo about it? I don't know what makes a person play like this other than a complete lack of self-awareness or a complete lack of awareness of anyone else at the table. In any case, dear viewers, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to leave a like and a comment down below. Thank you all again. I'll see you all for another round at the Chaotic Tavern.